Viewers, Nigeria, with a population of 220 million people, one of the biggest population in Africa, a population that would have served the African people equitably, a population that would have bought goods from other African countries, consumed the goods, a population that would have shown us direction as Africans of a smaller countries, a population that itself has been the center of civilization in the West African states. Nigeria descended on its own people. It started eating its own people. It started breaking down. It expired. From time to time since independence, the first time when General Aronzi came down and took over government, the death of the first prime minister or president of that country, Baba Tafawa Balewa, and others, this country has never had a smooth transition. Military coups upon military coups, experiences of people like Sammy Abacha, Babangida, Obasanjo, Buhari, Abubakar, to mention Cheshu Segari, Abiola. These are leaders that have come out of this great nation. But the great nation remains a boiling pot of Africa because it does not accept internal democracy. It came to the conclusion and it came to an end in 1967. It ceased to be a state called Nigeria. It became a country with several states. One of the states that came out that wanted its own direction is apparently the biggest state, the biggest nation called Biafra. Most of us grew up knowing very well Biafra was a country, an origin of civilization. Most of us who had read the history of that nation understood it very well. Our founding fathers of the struggle against the colonial rule balkanized Nigeria into one state. The agreement was very clear, but it seems it has expired. It seems the dynamics, the current dynamics, point to a state that needs to go back to table and ask itself, is Nigeria a collapsed state? Yes. The answer is yes. Nigeria is a collapsed state and there is no state anymore because every day you wake up, you find people have been killed, people are missing, women are being raped, killed, defiled, children have been abducted from schools. The army has descended on killing people, taking them very early in the mornings from their homes and slaughtering them, tying them on Land Rovers and driving them around the villages to show fear. The state has collapsed. Abductions, hostage, these are the words that you find in Nigeria. Bandits, terrorists, ISIS, Boko Haram, kidnappers, ransom, hostage. What a nation. A nation with capability to feed the entire West Africa, but it cannot feed. A nation with crude oil that can serve the entire Africa, but it lacks crude oil at the pump. How on earth did God create us to be part and parcel of this type of nations, where you have crude oil, you export it, but you don't have petrol at the pump? Corruption has made Nigeria collapse. The state has collapsed. The presidency is no more. It's just a figurehead and a dress code. Every conference we see a Buhari walking, well-dressed with sharp, long gabs. But we don't see any gist coming out of his contributions towards a better Africa. We only see the dark side of a Mr. Buhari. Or is he Buhari? Is the question. Most Nigerians say, and not me, but most Nigerians say he's not. That's why he cannot understand why the nation is collapsed. That's why the mice came back and ate all his chairs. An African saying from the clan where I come from. Once you are visited with mice that comes to eat your chairs, pack up and go. Because the next, it is God himself going to visit you. If the mice eats you, at night you don't feel the pain until you walk in the dew in the morning going to the garden. Is when you feel you were bitten by a mice or a rat or rats that ate Buhari's president's office. How on earth could rats eat the president's office, which is well guarded? Well guarded. The rats couldn't eat his office. It's a very bad sign. And we shall not keep quiet. We shall continue talking, and we shall talk. We shall lobby international community. Because the problem of Nigeria is not the judiciary, the judicial service. You can't solve Nigerian problem with judicial mechanism by arresting Nnamdi Kanu, detaining Nnamdi Kanu, rendating him, taking him a prisoner who doesn't change shirts, trousers, shoes. You can only solve the problem of Nigeria by constitutional political arrangement. That is the way, Mr. Buhari. Your term of office ends next year. Remember, you leave no legacy except misery. Thank you. I rest my case. Conflicts exist on this continent. One of the most raging conflicts on the continent of Africa is the question of Biafra. From 1965 or before that, the Biafrans had their own institutions. Before the colonial master arrived, they have agitated themselves. They have told the world they want fair treatment in a nation called Nigeria. Successive regimes have always trampled upon the rights of the people of Biafra, destroyed them, killed their younger men, assassinated many, deported many, excluded many, forceful deportation out of your own country time has come for the new generation in 2020, 2021, 2022, for people to sit down to find an everlasting solution to the conflict that is around that region. President Buhari promised us that he will finish in 100 days, the first term of office. Boko Haram will be dead. Today is finishing his second term. Boko Haram is even more vibrant than his own shoes. Good morning, viewers. Thank you very much for watching Punchline Africa television from the Political Command Center in London. Good morning. Viewers, in the morning you saw the Africa Touch by Miriam Ogutu in Nairobi. We now switch sides. Then we bring the Voice of Africa all the way from London. Viewers, for the last 6 years, I have been on the subject of the stability of this continent of Africa. I have singled out countries in the sub-Saharan Africa that could go to turmoil if African Union, United Nations, and other agencies don't come to the rescue of these countries. As we record this speech that I'm making this morning, which I believe the studios will do, I want to be very candid and on record that 6 years ago, when I predicted that Boko Haram would actually sweep the entire Sahel region, very many people doubted what I was saying. Today, as we look at the new dispensation, what is going on in Africa, and looking at the timelines of Nigeria's elections, you cannot miss the point that I told you that one day, and one day alone, this will come true. Nigeria is going to elections on 25th of February this year, 2023. But it is under siege of difficult internal challenges that have never been resolved by General Muhammad Buhari. General Muhammad Buhari came to power with promise 15 years in 2015, promising to wipe out Boko Haram in 100 days. General Buhari is leaving power after the elections on 25th with Boko Haram having spread the entire north of Nigeria into the Sahel region, across to Chad, and perhaps, who knows, it could reach immediately the Red Sea. General Buhari came on the goodwill of the opposition by then, after dislodging Goodluck Johnson, who conceded defeat and allowed General Buhari to take power, who promised very many reforms that have not happened to date. The problems of Nigeria are internal. Very few are external. One of the major problems of Nigeria today as a state, it faces collapse as it goes to these elections. Whether elections will be credible or not depends on how they will handle the situation, the outcome of these results. There are 93 million registered voters in Nigeria. Believe me, part of that population, about 40 million voters or 43 million voters are found in southeastern part of Nigeria, an area commonly known as Biafra. The calls by the Biafran leadership to sit at home and not to vote could be very devastating to the election and the election officials of Nigeria. On top of the Biafran call for self-determination, for a referendum, there has been kidnaps, hostage-taking, crime at the highest level, and the levels of crime soared to almost 96% of the total crime committed in the entire Africa. Nigeria has got highest index of corruption. That one is also one of the obstacles, challenges that the Electoral Commission of Nigeria and the people of Nigeria will face. But above all this, there is also xenophobia, internal xenophobia, against certain tribes who are being told to go back to their homes where they belong in the south. The Philistine has been playing, and the regionalism has played a vital role and is going to play a vital role in the decision to get who the right candidate for the post of presidency will be. It is for this that today I chose to speak candidly to the people of Africa, to the people of Nigeria, to the entire presidency of African people, the African Union, as they hold the summit next week, which will be Buhari's last summit. Why hasn't Buhari told us the extent at which Boko Haram has damaged the infrastructure, the human rights abuses, the kidnaps, the hostage taking, the corruption, the blackouts? How will people vote when most of the voting is done by biometric, which is being distributed across Nigeria? A country with 241 waterfalls, but lacks power, and it has blackouts throughout the country. They rely mostly on generators that generate and pollute even further the already polluted climate and the weather and environment of Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, those watching me and those who will receive this clip, my role, therefore, is to be an African voice. And being an African voice, I will speak as a voice of Africa. That Africa needs to overcome the challenges that bring us, that trigger violence. One of the challenges, one of the obstacles that triggers violence in Africa is none other than elections. Bad elections in Africa have left several countries torn to pieces, people paralyzed, struggles of power, struggles of ethnicity, and the struggles that end up in bigger conflicts, like the one we see in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Therefore, for any observer who seeks to find out whether Nigeria will hold a free and a fair election, one has to see the obstacles, the challenges that Nigeria faces today. In our submission, therefore, and in my submission this morning, I would like to say added problems of Nigeria, the scarcity of Naira, the currency change, conversions, and external influence coupled by influence of Total Oil and Shell BP have been the dominant factor externally that have decided the destiny and the route that Nigeria takes since its independence. Isn't it time, therefore, for the people of Africa to make decisions based on underlined obstacles that I have mentioned to help Nigeria, the African Union, the observer missions? I can see the Commonwealth has sent in my good friend Thabo Mbeki. He's a very good observer. I've observed the elections together with him. I've done peace building activities in Darfur together with him. But there is also a problem that this one is a very tricky election. An election where a country is divided, completely fractured, broken to pieces, ethnicity, corruption, kidnap, hostage taking, ransom, corruption. These are the things that are the hallmark of Nigeria's civil status as we stand right now. I therefore call upon the people of Africa and I call upon the people of Nigeria that this is why your country, that this is the time for us to unite and deliver, go through a proper election. If this election will be there at all, it could be there, but there are people who are determined to say there shouldn't be an election at all. People will sit at home. Because there is no law in Nigeria that forces people to go and vote. The detention of Nnamdi Kanu, the continued detention of Nnamdi Kanu, illegal detention after the courts released him to go by Mr. Buhari intelligence system, is another factor that has added more chaos for the people of southeastern Nigeria, who form 40.43 million registered voters who might not be able to turn up to select their preferred candidates. It is therefore an early warning trigger mechanism of this nature when we have 16 days to go, that something must be done to appease a situation on the ground. There must be all the time a sense of humor, the sense of acceptance, the sense of rehabilitation, the sense of healing, the sense of a redemption strategy that President Buhari can dismiss, can accept, and release Nnamdi Kanu to go back to his people so that we have a peaceful election. Let the winner come, win, and put Nigerians first and deliver for this state, this nation called Nigeria. As we take the first segment of our program, The Voice of Africa, we come back to look at what does the UN, AU, EU, African Union say about the elections of Nigeria. Don't go away. Let's take a briefer and come back shortly. Today, thousands and thousands of Africans and many countries in Africa have conflicts. Notably, from Libya, Cameroon, Nigeria, Biafra, and the Boko Haram, to Democratic Republic of Congo, of where we have seen a resurgence of the past military and conflicts coming back in that country. Hundreds and hundreds of people have been displaced, killed, maimed, tortured, raped, several of them dying of hunger, starvation, and other natural causes. The fighting seems not to be ending. For the sake of Libya, the Libyan recognized international government is under siege in Tripoli from another faction recognized by Egypt, France, UAE, and other countries. Whereas the one in Tripoli is recognized by the UN, it has been bombarded, has been strangulated, and many millions of Libyans are dying of hunger, lack of water. The water system has been cut off. The bombardment goes on. In Democratic Republic of Congo, we've seen more of active rebel activities returning to the region after some silence has been observed. When we come to Cameroon, we see millions and millions of Amazonians slaughtered. Yet, when you come to Biafra, again millions and hundreds of millions and millions are worried, displaced, tortured by the Buhari regime. Yet again in the north, we see Boko Haram killing, maiming, abducting, and burning down villages in the same Nigeria. When you cross over to Central African Republic, the same is the history that has littered Africa. While all these events are taking shape, Africa is silent. Africa is not making enough efforts to find a solution to what is causing the problems in Libya, in DRC, in Cameroon, in Nigeria, Biafra, and now you add in Khartoum, Sudan. As people die, the people of Africa have no answers, have no solutions. There is nothing to near to bring an end to the conflicts that have killed Africa. We seem to be new ones manufactured, old ones reignited, encouragement coming from external powers. One power that has been seen in the shadows of all these conflicts, especially the one of Libya that has escalated in the Sahara region of Africa, is France. When you come to Democratic Republic of Congo, the same country is in the shadows. The war can be seen is France. When you come to Cameroon, in Amazonia, the one behind that has the key to bringing peace is France. Therefore, our question as Africans, why are we silent? Why are we not saying enough is enough of the wars? Thank you.
I'm looking at the African Voice Show, the show that brings to you the voice of Africa, where we look at topical issues that concern Africa, touch Africa. We speak for Africa, those the voiceless, those who have remained embattled in various political, economic, and military issues. Somalia, Libya, Central African Republic, the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Sahara region, the northern parts of Maiduguri of Nigeria. Today, the lessons that we learn from the Nigerian episode are many. Today, the elections that will be conducted on 25th of February this month are elections that can help the people of this continent to decide whether elections are worth it or not. And today, the truth of the matter is elections seem not to be worth it in Africa. I've looked at all the aspects of elections. I've looked at all the aspects of why we hold elections every 5 years or 4 years, only to end up to fight, to quarrel, and talk about each other, and kill each other because of elections. The Plateau Republic, however, did not tell anybody that elections should be conducted every 4 or 5 years. It is something that we have copied from Westminster Foundation, that we have followed without reasoning, without singling out aspects that are not African. We have not yet reached the level in Africa where the winner can go home without saying there was a bad election, where the losers can accommodate the winners because we don't have a social structure that can help us to keep the social maintenance of peace and order, the law. Africa has been told to conduct elections every 5 years. But do these elections every 5 years help us? What do they help us? What do they bring on table for the people of Africa? How many Africans do enjoy this type of elections? How many Africans in Nigeria, for example, at the moment, are willing to stay in their countries and watch a peaceful environment of conducting an election, people voting and going back home, like in South Africa, where elections are successfully conducted, people go home, wait for the results. It will be a long miracle, a good miracle, tough miracle, that Africa will rise to that standard. 40 years ago, China had a similar problem. And that problem was, it didn't know what to do with China. 40 years ago, China went back to its shell, reviewed its policies, why it was not doing very well. As we speak today, China emerged out of the shell 40 years. It is one of the leading countries giving help to African countries as we speak. Ladies and gentlemen, therefore, the Nigerian elections are going to be elections that will decide whether Africa is mature enough to conduct its elections. And if not, then we should find other ways of expressing ourselves democratically, other than every 4 years, holding elections every 4 years, spending money, and having no change to the local masses of the same countries where we hold elections. I therefore submit and land my mic by saying that is the way Africa is, and that is the way the elections and our voice is to call upon African Union. For African Union to look at what could come out of Nigeria's elections and to tell the world that the dangers of such a bad climate internally, fragmented state, fractured state, where gangsters, gangs formed to kidnap for money, have formed themselves to kill, maim, and slaughter the innocent people. Until such things are brought to the accountability of the nation called and the state apparatus, I don't think these elections will be free, fair, credible, and reflection of the entire people of Nigeria. I want to be on the record that there could be about 28 to 30 million who could turn up for a vote. Out of 93 million people, you could only have 30 million people coming out for voting, which will leave 60 million people who have not voted but registered to vote. I submit, and I want to end this show by appealing to the people of Africa that time has come. Whose candidate you want to choose? There are 4 candidates, or several of them. One of the callers from United States has asked me to ask questions, but these questions go directed to the Nigerians, not to me. Which candidate do you prefer, do you think will be the one who will deliver Nigeria from the current status it is in? Which candidate do you think will deliver Nigeria from the current status it is in today? I land my mic. I thank you all for having listened to us. This was Punchline Africa Television, broadcasting from the Political Command Center in London. The Voice of Africa was the show brought to you by Dr. David Matanga. Tune in for another show at 3 p.m., the Diaspora Dispatches, which will expand more on the elections of Nigeria and the preparations of Nigeria by Miriam Ogutu. Thank you very much. God bless you. This station is for Africa, with Africa, by Africa. Ciao.
Rivers do not drink their own water. Trees do not eat their own fruit. The sun does not shine on itself, and flowers do not spread their fragrance for themselves. Living for others is a rule of nature. We are all born to help each other. No matter how difficult it is, life is good when you are happy, but much better when others are happy because of you.